The quantum sensors aboard the celestial observation vessel Starweaver detected the anomaly first, a peculiar surge of electromagnetic activity from a previously unremarkable solar system. High scientist Valina Xor adjusted her crystalline viewing apparatus, her iridescent scales shimming under the soft blue light of the bridge. After 3 centuries of methodically mapping the galaxy's civilizations, she had developed an instinct for significant discoveries. This signal was different. Captain Trelnor, I believe we've detected signs of advancing technology from System KR-2249, she announced, her voice carrying the formal tone expected of the Arcanian Science Council's leading researcher. The captain, a towering figure of living metal and quantum circuits, processed this information through his neural networks. Impossible. Our last survey marked that system as pre-industrial. The dominant species were still burning hydrocarbons. Nevertheless, the data is clear. They've achieved quantum communication capabilities, and if these readings are accurate, Valina's voice trailed off as she analyzed the incoming data streams. They'd done it in less than a century. The bridge fell silent. Such rapid technological advancement was unprecedented in the recorded history of the Galactic Alliance. Most species took millennia to progress from industrial technology to quantum mechanics. The implications were troubling. Plot a course for KR-2249, Captain Trelnor commanded. We need to verify this personally. The Starweaver's quantum drive hummed to life, folding space-time around the vessel. As they traveled, Valina reviewed the historical data on System KR-2249, now known to its inhabitants as Solar System, and its dominant species, humans. The last survey, conducted just 87 years ago, had dismissed them as an unremarkable species. Their planet was plagued by political divisions, environmental degradation, and constant conflicts. The report had concluded they would either destroy themselves or take another millennium to achieve spacefaring capabilities. How wrong they had been. As the Starweaver emerged from quantum space at the edge of the solar system, the sensors immediately detected thousands of satellites orbiting the third planet, extensive colonies on its moon and fourth planet, and multiple vessels traveling between them using primitive but effective fusion drives. High scientist, one of the sensor operators called out, their tentacles waving in agitation. I'm detecting artificial structures in the Kuiper belt. They appear to be quantum observation posts. Valina felt her scales flutter in surprise. These humans hadn't just noticed them coming. They had been watching and waiting. Before she could respond, a transmission cut through their communication system, broadcasting on frequencies that shouldn't have been possible for such a young civilization to access. Greetings, Celestial Observation Vessel Starweaver. This is Dr. Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force. We've been expecting you. The bridge crew exchanged looks of astonishment. The humans were speaking perfect galactic standard, a language they shouldn't have even known existed. Captain Trelnor's quantum circuits pulsed with increased activity as he processed this unexpected development. How did they? If you're wondering about our language capabilities, Dr. Chen's voice continued, a hint of amusement evident in her tone. We decoded your communication protocols from your long-range transmissions years ago. We've been studying you as much as you've been studying us. Valina stepped forward. I am High Scientist Valina Xur of the Arcanian Science Council. Your technological progress is unprecedented. Our records show your civilization was pre-industrial less than a century ago. Necessity is the mother of invention, High Scientist. Dr. Chen replied. When we realized we weren't alone in the universe, we understood we needed to accelerate our development. Your presence here confirms our theories about quantum detection technology. A new holographic display materialized in the bridge, showing a human woman with features that suggested mixed ethnic heritage. She wore a uniform bearing insignias Valina didn't recognize, but the confidence in her bearing was universal. We would be honored to host your delegation at our quantum research facility on Europa, Dr. Chen offered. There's much we could learn from each other. Captain Trelnor's metallic form shifted slightly. a gesture Valina recognized as uncertainty. Your species has advanced far beyond our expectations, Dr. Chen. The Galactic Alliance protocols for first contact were written for gradually developing civilizations, not ones that leap from fossil fuels to quantum mechanics in less than a century. Dr. Chen finished. We're aware of your protocols, Captain. We're also aware that they don't account for species like us. Valina found herself fascinated by the implications. How did you achieve such rapid advancement? Cooperation. Dr. Chen answered simply. When we discovered your survey vessel 87 years ago, it united humanity in a way nothing else had. Knowing we weren't alone in the universe changed everything. National borders became less important. Resources were pooled. The brightest minds from every corner of Earth came together with a single purpose: to prepare humanity for its place among the stars. The quantum sensors detected multiple vessels emerging from the direction of Europa. Sleek, efficient craft that somehow combined both aesthetic beauty and practical functionality in a way Valina had never seen before. Your escort has arrived, Dr. Chen announced. They'll guide you to our facility. And don't worry about the quantum shielding around Europa. We'll provide you with the frequency codes to pass through safely. Valina noticed Captain Trellner's quantum circuits pulse rapidly, the equivalent of a shocked expression for his species. They hadn't even detected the quantum shielding. As the Starweaver followed its escort toward the ice-covered moon, Valina began composing her report to the Science Council. How could she explain that the supposedly primitive humans had not only caught up with Galactic Alliance technology, but had also developed innovations of their own? How could she convey the implications of a species that had turned the discovery of alien life into a catalyst for unprecedented advancement, rather than a source of fear or conflict? The Europa Research Facility was a marvel of engineering, a sprawling complex built within the moon's icy crust, powered by a combination of fusion reactors and what appeared to be zero-point energy collectors, another technology that should have been beyond human capabilities. As their shuttle docked, Valina noticed something else that set humans apart from other species they had encountered. The facility was staffed by people of varying ages, from what appeared to be students to elderly researchers. Most advanced civilizations used automation for routine tasks, but here, humans of all experience levels worked together, teaching and learning from each other in real time. Dr. Chen met them at the airlock, her presence as commanding in person as it had been via hologram. "Welcome to Europa," she said, extending her hand in what Valina's cultural database identified as a greeting gesture. "We have so much to show you." As they toured the facility, Valina's scientific mind was overwhelmed by the innovations she witnessed. The humans had taken fundamental concepts of quantum mechanics and applied them in ways she had never considered. Their technology wasn't just advanced. It was creative, elegant, and often surprisingly simple in its brilliance. "How did you solve the quantum decoherence problem in your communication systems?" she asked, unable to contain her curiosity any longer. Dr. Chen smiled. "We didn't. We worked around it. Instead of trying to maintain quantum states over long distances, we developed a system of quantum relays that refreshed the signal. It's less efficient than true quantum communication, but it works." "That's ingenious," Valina admitted. "We spent centuries trying to solve the decoherence problem directly." "Sometimes the best solution isn't the most obvious one," Dr. Chen replied. "That's something we humans have learned through our history. When you can't break down a wall, you find a way around it, or over it, or under it, or you make the wall irrelevant entirely." As their tour continued, Valina began to understand why humans had advanced so quickly. They didn't just solve problems. They redefined them. They didn't just follow logical progression. They made intuitive leaps. And most importantly, they weren't afraid to fail, to try new approaches, to learn from their mistakes. The implications were staggering. The Galactic Alliance had always assumed that technological advancement followed a predictable linear path. Humans proved that assumption wrong. They had taken their own path, driven by a unique combination of creativity, determination, and the unifying effect of knowing they weren't alone in the universe. As Valina prepared to return to the Starweaver, she realized that this wasn't just a first contact situation. This was the beginning of something much more significant. Humanity wouldn't just join the Galactic Alliance. They would change it, challenge its assumptions, and push it to evolve. And perhaps that was exactly what the galaxy needed. The emergency meeting of the Galactic Alliance Council was called at 300 hours Universal Standard Time. Representatives from over 300 civilizations gathered in the vast chamber of convergence on New Alexandria, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of quantum displays showing the same disturbing data. Admiral Elena Rodriguez of the United Earth Fleet stood before them, her weathered face reflecting decades of experience in both diplomacy and combat. Unlike most of the representatives who appeared via quantum projection, she had made the journey in person. Some things, she believed, needed to be said face to face. The quantum anomaly we've detected in the Carina arm isn't natural, she began, her voice carrying across the chamber. It's expanding at an exponential rate, consuming everything in its path. At its current growth rate, it will reach populated systems within 3 standard months. The chamber erupted in a cacophony of voices and translated communications. The Carina arm contains some of the oldest civilizations in the galaxy, including the archives of the Ancient Ones. High Counselor Zixtal of the Silicon Consciousness raised their crystalline form. Our predictive matrices have analyzed this phenomenon extensively. It defies all known laws of physics. We cannot stop what we cannot understand. With respect, High Counselor, Elena responded, that's exactly why Earth has requested this emergency session. We believe we found a way to not just understand the anomaly, but to contain it. The chamber fell silent. The Silicon Consciousness were considered the foremost experts in quantum physics, their artificial minds capable of calculations that would take organic beings millennia to complete. Impossible, Zixtal declared. Our calculations are perfect. There is no solution within the bounds of known science. Elena allowed herself a small smile. That's because we're not using known science. We're using impossible science. She gestured, and a holographic display materialized in the center of the chamber. It showed a device unlike anything the Council had seen before, a sphere composed of interlocking rings that seemed to shift and move despite being static. This is the Quantum Boundary Generator, or QBG, Elena explained. It doesn't try to stop the anomaly directly. Instead, it creates a space where our universe's physical laws don't apply. That's heresy against the natural order, sputtered Representative Kivor of the Biological Collective, their tentacles writhing in agitation. You cannot simply decide to ignore the laws of physics. Actually, we can, came a new voice. Dr. James Chen, son of the legendary Dr. Sarah Chen, who had helped guide humanity's first official contact 50 years ago, stepped forward. He wore the simple gray uniform of the Earth Science Division, but his presence commanded attention. The fundamental mistake we've all been making is assuming that the laws of physics are immutable, he continued. They're not laws. They're guidelines, patterns that the universe usually follows. But under the right circumstances, with the right approach, they can be persuaded to look the other way. The chamber erupted again, this time in a mixture of outrage and fascination. Elena watched as the various representatives argued among themselves, some dismissing the human theory as madness, others cautiously intrigued by its possibilities. Demonstrate, Zixtal demanded suddenly, their crystalline form pulsing with intense light. Show us this impossible science of yours. Elena nodded to Dr. Chen, who activated a small device on his wrist. In the center of the chamber, a miniature version of the QBG hummed to life. The air around it began to shimmer, and then, to the astonishment of the gathered representatives, a small sphere of space simply opted out of reality. What you're seeing is a quantum bubble where the normal rules don't apply, Dr. Chen explained. Inside that sphere, cause can follow effect, entropy can run backward, and quantum states can exist in perfect stability without observation. But how do you control it? Asked a representative of the energy beings, their form flickering with excitement or fear. It was hard to tell with their species. We don't, Alina said simply. And that's the key. Every other approach has tried to force the anomaly to behave according to our understanding of physics. We're proposing to create a space where it can behave according to its own rules. And then what? Kavor demanded. You create a space where nothing makes sense, and then we talk to it, Dr. Chen said quietly. The chamber went completely silent. The anomaly shows patterns, he continued. Not patterns we understand, but patterns nonetheless. We believe it's not just a phenomenon. It's an entity, or perhaps multiple entities. By creating a space where it can exist comfortably, we hope to establish communication. You want to negotiate with a quantum anomaly. Zixtal's tone carried what might have been amusement in an organic being. Why not? Alina countered. 50 years ago, you thought we were primitive beings barely worth noticing. Now we're here, proposing solutions you hadn't considered. Perhaps it's time to stop deciding what's impossible and start exploring what's possible. The council debated for hours. The humans waited patiently, answering questions, explaining concepts that challenged millennia of scientific understanding. Finally, High Counselor Zixtal spoke for the assembly. The council approves the human proposal, they announced. But we have one condition. If this fails, if your impossible science proves to be merely impossible rather than revolutionary, you must accept our original solution, the evacuation of the Carina arm. Agreed, Alina said firmly. But when this works, the council must accept that humanity's approach to science, while different from yours, is equally valid. As the representatives filed out of the chamber, Dr. Chen approached Alina. They still don't understand, do they? They think we're being arrogant or reckless. Alina watched the departing council members, remembering her mother's stories about humanity's first steps into the galactic community. They understand less than they think, and more than they know. They see our solution as impossible because they're looking for perfection. They don't grasp that humanity's strength isn't in getting everything right. It's in our willingness to get things wrong until we find what works. Over the next 2 weeks, a fleet of ships from every major civilization gathered at the edge of the anomaly. At its heart, the human vessel Quantum Dreamer prepared to deploy the full-scale QBG. The device was massive, its interlocking rings spanning kilometers. All personnel are in position, Dr. Chen reported. QBG power levels are stable. We're ready to begin. Alina took a deep breath. 50 years of human innovation, of learning to bend the rules of reality without breaking them, had led to this moment. Initiate the sequence. The QBG hummed to life, its rings beginning their impossible dance. Around the Quantum Dreamer, space itself seemed to hesitate, as if unsure which laws it was supposed to follow. And then it happened. The anomaly, instead of continuing its expansion, paused. Tendrils of quantum uncertainty reached out toward the bubble of altered space the humans had created. It's working, Dr. Chen whispered. It's actually working. The quantum sensors detected patterns in the anomaly's behavior, patterns that almost looked like language. As the humans had predicted, given a space where it could exist comfortably, the anomaly was trying to communicate. The gathered fleet watched in awe as humanity's impossible science proved not just possible, but necessary. It wasn't about forcing the universe to behave. It was about creating space for the unknown, the impossible, the revolutionary. And in that moment, the galaxy learned a crucial lesson about humanity. Sometimes the best way to solve a problem isn't to fight it head-on, but to change the rules of engagement entirely. The Grand Conclave of New Alexandria buzzed with tension. In the aftermath of the quantum anomaly crisis, the balance of power in the galaxy had shifted dramatically. The silicon consciousness and the biological collective, once steadfast allies, now stood on the brink of war. Their dispute centered on the newly discovered quantum communication protocols that had emerged from studying the anomaly. Ambassador Maya Patil of Earth watched the proceedings with growing concern. At just 35, she was young for a human diplomat, but she had inherited her grandmother's gift for understanding alien perspectives. Currently, both sides were talking, but neither was communicating. The quantum protocols belong to all sentient beings, declared prime instance Axelon of the silicon consciousness, their crystalline form pulsing with barely contained energy. Your biological limitations make it impossible for you to fully utilize them. We should be their primary custodians. First speaker Nura of the biological collective rose from her pool of nutrient fluid, her bioluminescent patterns flashing in anger. Your kind would restrict access to serve your own purposes. The protocols were discovered through joint effort. They belong to everyone or no one. Maya noticed something that the other observers had missed. Behind the heated words, both leaders were displaying signs of fear. The silicon consciousness's crystal lattices were vibrating at frequencies associated with uncertainty, while the biological collective's representative was releasing stress hormones into her nutrient bath. She tapped a discrete command into her neural interface, connecting with the human diplomatic corps scattered throughout the chamber. They're both terrified, she subvocalized. Not of each other, of something else. Captain Sarah Rodriguez, granddaughter of Admiral Elena Rodriguez and Maya's longtime friend, responded from her position near the chamber's entrance. The quantum anomaly changed everything. Neither side knows what other impossible things might be lurking in the dark between stars. Exactly, Maya replied. This isn't about the protocols. It's about security. She stood, drawing the attention of the assembled representatives. The Earth delegation requests permission to present an alternative perspective. The Chamber Master, a being of pure energy contained within an ancient environmental suit, signaled acceptance. All eyes turned to Maya. Honored representatives, she began, her voice clear and steady. We're not here to debate ownership of the quantum protocols. We're here because the galaxy has changed, and change breeds fear. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. But Maya continued. The silicon consciousness fears that biological beings, with their emotional decision-making, might misuse the protocols in ways that could endanger everyone. The biological collective fears that artificial beings, with their rigid logic, might restrict access to protect us from ourselves. Both fears are valid. Both fears are human. We are not human, prime instance Axelon stated, but there was a note of curiosity in their harmonic resonance. No, but in this moment, you're experiencing something humans have faced throughout our history, Maya explained. When we first discovered nuclear fission, we faced the same dilemma. Should this power be restricted to those who could most efficiently use it? Should it be freely available to all? We nearly destroyed ourselves wrestling with these questions. First speaker Nura's bioluminescence shifted to patterns indicating intrigue. How did you resolve this conflict? We created systems of mutual oversight and collaborative development, Maya said. No single group held absolute control, but all participants had to demonstrate responsibility and transparency. It wasn't perfect, but it worked because everyone had a stake in its success. She gestured, and a holographic display materialized in the center of the chamber. We propose a similar solution for the quantum protocols. A joint commission composed of representatives from all major species groups. Decisions require consensus. Research is shared. Security is everyone's responsibility. Impossible. Prime instance, Axelon declared, but their crystal lattice had stabilized slightly. The processing requirements alone would be substantial, Maya agreed. But consider, the quantum anomaly taught us that impossible things happen when different perspectives come together. The silicon consciousness excels at processing vast amounts of data. The biological collective has unmatched insight into evolutionary adaptation. Humans, we're good at thinking around corners. And other species? First speaker Nura asked. The energy beings, the quantum collectives, the mechanical swarms. Each brings unique strengths, Maya said. Together, we're stronger than apart. More importantly, we're safer together than apart. The chamber fell silent as the representatives considered her words. Maya could see the calculations running through the silicon consciousness's crystal matrices, could read the subtle shifts in the biological collective's chemical signatures. Finally, Prime Instance Axelon spoke. Your proposal has merit, but how can we trust each other after coming so close to conflict? Maya smiled. Trust isn't binary. It's not something you have or don't have. Trust is something you build, choice by choice, day by day. Humans learned this lesson through centuries of conflict and cooperation. We're offering to help you learn it faster. Over the next several hours, the details of the Joint Commission were hammered out. The Silicon Consciousness agreed to share their quantum processing capabilities. The biological collective offered their insights into adaptive systems. Other species stepped forward with their own contributions. As the session drew to a close, the chamber master approached Maya. You saw what others missed, they said, their ancient voice crackling with static. How? Humans have a saying, Maya replied. When someone's angry, look for their pain. When someone's afraid, look for their hope. The Silicon Consciousness and the biological collective weren't fighting over protocols. They were fighting for a future they could believe in. We just had to help them see they wanted the same thing. Later, in her private quarters, Maya received a message from Captain Rodriguez. Nicely done, Ambassador. Think it will last. Maya thought about the quantum anomaly, about humanity's journey from a divided planet to a unifying force in galactic politics. Nothing lasts forever, she replied. But that's not the point. The point is to keep building, keep adapting, keep finding new ways to move forward together. That's the human way. She looked out her window at the glittering expanse of New Alexandria, where beams of crystal, flesh, energy, and consciousness all work together in an impossible harmony. And maybe, she added softly, that's becoming the galactic way too. The void between galaxies was supposed to be empty. That was the first lesson every spacefaring civilization learned. The vast darkness between the stars was just that, darkness and emptiness. But as Dr. Marcus Chen stared at the sensor readings from humanity's most advanced deep space monitoring station on the edge of the Milky Way, he knew that fundamental lesson was wrong. It's not just a gravitational anomaly, he explained to the emergency session of the Joint Species Council. It's eating the void itself. The quantum displays showed a phenomenon that defied conventional physics, a region of space nearly a light year across where the vacuum itself was being consumed, leaving behind something that wasn't merely empty. It was the absence of existence itself. First speaker Nura's bioluminescent patterns shifted to deep ultraviolet, a sign of extreme distress. The void between galaxies is our primary trade route with Andromeda. If this phenomenon continues to expand, we'll be cut off from a third of known space, finished Prime Instance Axelon of the Silicon Consciousness. Their crystalline form had taken on a dull, matte finish, the equivalent of a human's cold sweat. Dr. Chen zoomed in on a particular section of the sensor data. That's not the worst part. The phenomenon isn't just expanding. It's accelerating, and it's changing course. The chamber erupted in a cascade of alarmed communications. The energy being's representatives flickered so rapidly they nearly destabilized their containment fields. The quantum collective's probability clouds became chaotic, spreading anxiety through their linked consciousnesses. It's showing signs of intelligence, Dr. Chen continued once the initial shock had subsided. The trajectory shifts aren't random. It's responding to our observation. More importantly, it's responding to our attempts to study it. Ambassador Maya Patel, now serving her second term as humanity's voice on the council, leaned forward. You mean it's aware of us? I mean it's aware of everything. Dr. Chen's voice carried the weight of his family's long history with impossible scientific discoveries. Every probe we've sent, every scan we've conducted, it doesn't just detect them, it plays with them, like a cat with a mouse. The mechanical swarm's representative, a constantly shifting cloud of microscopic robots, formed into a rough approximation of a questioning face. Our most advanced computational models cannot predict its behavior. How can we defend against something we cannot understand? We don't, came a new voice. Captain Sarah Rodriguez strode into the chamber, her uniform bearing the marks of recent space combat. We've already lost 3 ships trying to establish a defensive perimeter. This thing doesn't just eat space. It consumes energy, matter, and even the quantum information that describes them. Traditional defense is impossible. Then we are doomed, declared one of the energy beings, their containment field crackling with despair. No, Dr. Chen said firmly. We're not doomed. We're just thinking about this the wrong way. He gestured to his assistant, and a new set of displays materialized. Look at these patterns. The phenomenon isn't just destroying space, it's transforming it, creating something new. The silicon consciousness's representatives processed the data through their quantum matrices. These readings, they're similar to the quantum anomaly we encountered 50 years ago. Similar, but fundamentally different, Dr. Chen agreed. The quantum anomaly was like a child lost in our universe. This is like an adult redecorating their home. Maya's eyes widened as she understood. You think this entity views our universe as its living space? Exactly. And we're not vermin to be exterminated. We're more like unexpected houseguests. Dr. Chen's expression was intense. It's not trying to destroy us. It's trying to understand why we're here and what we're doing in its space. Captain Rodriguez stepped forward. So how do we communicate with something that exists in dimensions we can barely comprehend? We don't, Dr. Chen said. At least, not directly. But we can show it who we are. He activated another display, showing a device that looked deceptively simple, a sphere made of interlocking rings, similar to the quantum boundary generator from 50 years ago, but with significant modifications. This is the Reality Interface Nexus, or RAIN, he explained. Instead of creating a space where physics doesn't apply, it creates a space where multiple sets of physics can coexist, a translation layer between their reality and ours. The council members studied the design with varying degrees of comprehension and skepticism. The silicon consciousness was the first to understand the implications. You want to create a space where we can perceive their reality while they perceive ours, Prime Instance Axelon stated. A meeting ground between fundamentally different forms of existence. Exactly, Dr. Chen confirmed. But here's the catch. We need help from everyone. The silicon consciousness's quantum processing power, the biological collective's adaptability, the energy being's mastery of dimensional physics, the quantum collective's probability manipulation, the mechanical swarm's microengineering, and humanity's knack for making the impossible possible. First speaker Nura's bioluminescence shifted to a pattern indicating deep thought. The resources required would be astronomical. The alternative is watching a third of known space become unknowable, Maya pointed out. Besides, isn't this why we formed the Joint Species Council? To face challenges no single species could handle alone. The chamber fell silent as the representatives considered the proposal. The silence was broken by Captain Rodriguez. There's something else you should know, she said, her voice grave. The void entity. It's not alone. Our long-range sensors have detected similar phenomena beginning to manifest throughout intergalactic space. Whatever these beings are, they're waking up. All of them. Dr. Chen nodded. Which means this isn't just about saving our trade routes or protecting our territory. This is first contact on a scale we've never imagined. We're not just meeting new neighbors. We're discovering that we've been living in someone else's house all along. The implications sent ripples of reaction through the council. Fear, excitement, curiosity, determination. Each species expressed it differently, but the underlying reality was the same. The galaxy, perhaps the entire universe, was about to change forever. We need to decide now, Maya declared. Do we retreat from this challenge, or do we face it together? Do we hide from the impossible, or do we reach out and try to understand it? One by one, the council members signaled their agreement. The Silicon Consciousness committed their vast processing power. The Biological Collective offered their adaptable biological engineering. The Energy Beings pledged their dimensional expertise. The Quantum Collectives promised their probability manipulation skills. The Mechanical Swarms volunteered their micro-engineering capabilities. And humanity. Humanity offered what it always had, the ability to look at the impossible and say, "Let's try anyway." The reality interface nexus floated in the void between galaxies, its interlocking rings slowly rotating in patterns that defied conventional geometry. Dr. Marcus Chen stood at the observation window of the command center, watching as the massive device prepared for its first full power activation. Behind him, representatives from every major galactic civilization waited in tense silence. "All systems are synchronized," announced Prime Instance Axelon, their crystalline form interfaced directly with the Rand's quantum core. The Silicon Consciousness stands ready. First Speaker Nura's bioluminescent patterns pulsed steadily. Biological collective adaptation matrices are online. Our organic computers are prepared for any contingency. One by one, the other species representatives reported their readiness. The Energy Beings had woven a complex dimensional lattice around the Ryan. The Quantum Collectives maintained probability shields that would prevent reality itself from unraveling. The Mechanical Swarms had deployed billions of microscopic robots to maintain the device's intricate structures. Ambassador Maya Patel, now serving as the head of the Joint Species Council, stepped forward. Captain Rodriguez, status of the Defense Fleet. Sarah Rodriguez, recently promoted to Admiral, responded from her command ship. "All vessels are in position. Though honestly, if this goes wrong, I doubt we'll be able to do much except watch." "That's not why you're here," Maya reminded her. "You're here to show them we come as equals, ready for peace, but prepared for any possibility." Dr. Chen turned from the window. "The void entity is responding to our presence. It's curious. The Rand's preliminary readings suggest it's never encountered anything quite like this before. And we've certainly never encountered anything like it," Maya observed. "Appropriate, isn't it? The first true meeting of equals." The chamber's atmosphere was charged with anticipation. After 6 months of preparation, countless setbacks, and the combined efforts of every advanced civilization in the galaxy, they were about to attempt something unprecedented. A conversation between different forms of reality itself. "Ren power levels at 100%, reported Dr. Chen. Beginning primary sequence." The device's rings began to spin faster, their movements creating patterns that hurt to look at directly. Space itself seemed to flex and bend around the Ryan, as if reality was trying to decide which set of physics should apply. "Interface zone stabilizing," Prime Instance Axelon announced. "We're detecting coherent patterns in the quantum foam. The void entity is responding to our invitation." Through the observation window, they could see it happening. The nothingness that wasn't merely empty space began to interact with the Rand's carefully crafted interface zone. Where the two met, something new emerged, a space that was neither void nor normal reality, but a carefully maintained middle ground where both could exist simultaneously. "By all that lives," First Speaker Nura whispered, her bioluminescence shifting to patterns never before recorded. "They're beautiful." In the interface zone, they could finally perceive the void entities for what they were, beams of pure information and possibility, existing in dimensions that made normal space-time look as flat as a shadow. They didn't think in terms of matter or energy, but in patterns of potential and probability. "They're trying to communicate," Dr. Chen announced, his voice filled with wonder. The Rand's displays showed cascading streams of data as the device translated between fundamentally different forms of existence. "We're receiving concepts," Prime Instance Axelon reported. "They're surprised. They didn't know we were real." To them, our universe looked like abstract mathematics until they began to notice our activities. Maya leaned forward. "Can we respond?" The translation matrices are adapting, Dr. Chen confirmed. We can send simple concepts back. What should our first message be? Maya didn't hesitate. Send them the concept of greeting, of meeting as equals. Show them humanity's first words to the galactic community. We come in peace, seeking understanding. The Aryan pulsed as it transmitted the message. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the interface zone blazed with new patterns as the void entities responded. They're laughing. First speaker Nura announced, her translator struggling with the concept. Not mockingly, with joy. They say we're young. No, that's not quite right. They say we're unexpected and wonderful. More messages followed. The void entities explained their nature. They were the original inhabitants of the universe, existing in deeper layers of reality. Our universe, what we thought of as all of existence, was to them like the surface of a vast ocean. They had been dormant for eons, dreaming in dimensions we couldn't comprehend until our activities, our quantum experiments, our reality-bending technologies, our insatiable curiosity, had awakened them. They want to know everything about us, Dr. Chen reported, his fingers flying over the control panels as he helped the Orion process the flood of communication. They're fascinated by our diversity, our different approaches to existence. They've never encountered anything like us before. Admiral Rodriguez's voice came over the comm. Are we in danger? Do they want us to leave? The void entity's response came quickly. They had no desire to harm or displace us. Instead, they offered something unprecedented, a partnership. They could teach us about the deeper layers of reality, while learning from our unique perspectives and approaches to existence. They say we've done something they thought impossible. Prime instance, Axelon translated. We've united different forms of consciousness, different approaches to reality, into a cooperative whole. They want to learn how we did it. Maya looked around the chamber at the assembled representatives, crystal beings and organic entities, energy constructs and quantum probabilities, mechanical swarms, and human innovators, all working together despite their differences. Tell them, she said, that we learned this lesson through necessity and hope. Tell them that we discovered that the impossible becomes possible when different perspectives come together. Tell them that humanity's gift to the galaxy wasn't our technology or our adaptability. It was our ability to see past differences and find common ground. As the RAN transmitted these concepts, the void entities responded with a burst of information that overloaded several systems. When the translation finally came through, it was simple but profound. They offered to join the Joint Species Council to add their perspective to the growing tapestry of galactic civilization.